In this video I want to make a tall candelabra or candle holder for one of the larger pillar candles. I've got it set up between centres so that I can do most of my turning. I'm going to have to do a little bit of turning into the end to hollow out, so it's got more of a tray for holding the candle. But for the most part I'm looking at something around this tall, so I've got it on a good face plate that's got a screw thread in the centre. It's also got 4 screws in the side, so it's going to be nice and firmly held. I've already cut the corners off this block. This is actually a laminated block. You can see where there's a joint here. So that's basically made a 90 by 90 square piece of timber. I've taken the corners off so that it's going to make turning from the beginning a little safer, so there's less chance of it actually splitting off on me when I first start. Because it's a larger piece, I will actually start with a gouge this time to try and get rid of some of the excess waste. Some of my smaller ones I like to use just a scraper, but I'm going to start with a gouge this time. I've got it set second fastest speed so that it's got a good bit of momentum happening when it's actually doing the turning. Now I've stopped because the sound, and I was right, the sound sounded like it had basically gotten down to round. It had lost its motorboating, which you get when it's still hitting corners. I want to make sure that I don't turn this down too far, because the pillar candle they're usually about a 70mm diameter at the base, and being this is started at 90 round, it's going to be just under 90, in between 85 and 90 hopefully, so that I can have a bit of a hollowed out section with still having a lip. So I've gotten that down to round for most of it. There's just a little spot here, but I'm going to move to the scraper now so that I don't go staying too aggressive with it. I want to get this leveled out so I can start working on my shape. I'm just doing a very light final pass to try and get any of those little light high sections down. It looks like I found a soft spot. Now I'll just check that I actually do have it all round. Still a little flat spot there. That's from when I actually did my sawing off, I think. Okay, so there's just a little bit left there. I get my tape measure. I just want to check what that's likely to be. At the moment, I'm now sitting on about 86mm, probably a little bit more just across the centre. That's going to be a good size, so I can still get this down to a perfect round and not lose too much of it. And I'm thinking of having a section here in, a little bit of a beading, a narrower stem in the centre, maybe another bit of a bead out to a more sturdy base and stopping it around here. Actually, what I'm thinking I might do, because this is so long, I'm going to try and do this hollow out here while this is still a good solid piece. Then I can send my centre back in, because if there's a little dot in the centre of the candle base, that's not a big deal. But I'd hate to do all this turning here, and then when I'm trying to do something up here, I make a mess of something here and snap the whole thing. So I'm going to loosen the tailstock off. It is nice and firmly held, so that is one plus. But it's just one of those things, you had one too many mishaps in the past, and it's better to play it safe than sorry. You'd hate to do, while I'm not thinking of going too small with my stem, I really would hate to do a lot of work and then have it get destroyed on me, especially when I'm trying to make this as a gift. Smaller scraper. Just up a little bit high in this front section. That vibrating sound that I wouldn't want to have happen when I've got something that's really intricately set out. Now if I want to just check this across the line, so my total diameter is 84, 85. I want to go 70. I want to come 35 out from the edge. So 70, maybe 75 might be a good idea. So I'm looking at about that being my size. That's giving where the line is now on the outside is about 74. So if I can part down around that. This is proving to be a little difficult because I am actually turning straight in onto the end grain. I'm needing something that's going to be quite aggressive without being dangerous. I like what I've got there, so I'm not going to tempt fate and go too much further. So now I can get back to the task at hand. Actually, I will see how I go. I was going to put the tailstock back in, but this is seeming fairly solid. It's got a good solid basing in the back. I'll see how I go. Could be tempting fate with that too. For some purists of wood turning, could be watching this and saying, I'm using the skew chisel upside down, and they'd more than likely be right. But as I have said in other videos, I'm not a big fan of a skew chisel, especially using it in this direction. They tend to get grabbed by the job, in my experience. And will run away on you. And make an absolute mess of your job. I think that's probably a diameter that I'm thinking down there that I want to have for the stem. Now at a point where I think I need to lower the tool rest down a little. Always a scary sound to hear, which means I need to turn this down further, which is what I did not want to do. But it's not like it's the end of the world. actually going to go and hone up my gouge. And while I'm at it, I'll hone up these two as well. The reason I decided to do that is because I think this actually grabbed because the gouge was starting to get a little bit blunt and I was trying to use a different part of the edge, consequently meaning that this corner grabbed into the grain. It's cutting much nicer now. If I've gotten rid of that tear out, and just noticed some weak spots in the timber, but I have gotten rid of that tear out now, so now I can work on doing or finishing off a base. That grab. So a little bit of cleaning up to do inside the edge of that. Well, I'm quite happy with the shape of that. It makes a bit of a statement. I now just need to get it sanded and finished. Now it's one of those things, when you get to a point where you're happy with a shape, that's when you say, okay, it's time to move on to the next step. Because if you don't, there is a chance that you can make a big mess of it, as I have done in the past. So I'll move my chisels all out of the way. And before I go starting to sand, I am actually going to turn the speed up on the lathe. The idea with the speed is that the bigger the pulley on the motor and the smaller the pulley on the shaft, the faster it's going to go. So if you've got a small pulley on the motor and a large pulley on the shaft, it's going to go a lot slower. And this was a piece of 80, which is pretty aggressive on the timber. So it's left some fairly hefty scratch marks. And when you're sanding, don't be afraid to get in onto the job. As long as you keep your hand away from this end, where all the sharp bits are, and the hard bits, you're not likely to get injured. I guess the most common injury while sanding is friction burn. I got a little bit of a blister from my last job on one of my fingers. There was a piece of hardwood and it was getting quite a fair bit of heat into it. But you want to make sure you get your pressure on it. One way to avoid the spirally scratches is keep your sandpaper moving a fair bit. And because it is a an actual finishing process, you do need to make sure you go down through your levels of, or your grits of sandpaper. Every now and then just stop it in between to have a look at it. Now, like, I can see these stress marks in here. They are actually a character of the timber, so I don't want to try and hide them too much. They will get filled in a little bit by the oils and the wax. That big sound was my motor coming loose. How many of you noticed the burn marks that suddenly appeared there? My sandpaper certainly did. I did manage to get it back out though, which is good. I'm now down to a 240. Is coming up really nicely. And this timber, I think, is a leftover piece of it's a Tassie Oak or Victorian Ash, which is pretty much the same timber. And it was just the leftover bit from a past project where I wanted some hefty sized legs on a table. So that's all my grits. I went down to a 320 grit sandpaper. You can obviously go lower and lower and lower. I don't have them here, so I'm stopping at that. But I've got a nice bit of material here for burnishing. There's a burn. How prominent is that? Yeah. It's one of those things you've always got to watch for. And I caught it. Let's go back to my 320. Very light movement around it. very easy to get rid of that burn mark. So that's nice and warm. Using a bit of tung oil to finish it off. And tung oil is an oil that will buff up nice and shiny, but not only that, it will polymerize and harden, so it becomes a nice finish, a nice protective finish. Just get it on there fairly liberally. Make sure you get it into all your beaded grooves and things. You're not trying to be pretty with it because it's going to be buffed off. But you do want to make sure that you do get it all over your entire job, bar the bottom maybe. Piece of clean lint-free cloth, just give it a bit of a wipe off of the excess. Just so I don't have bits of oil flicking off all over the place when I first turn it on. Because it will flick off, especially at this sort of a revolution. And if you don't want to get hit by it, you just stand to the side when you turn it on. Give the outermost bits a buff. And try and get your cloth right into those grooves. If you don't get your buffing cloth into the grooves, you're going to get left with a sticky residue from the oil where it congeals in the bottom. So that's one coat, that's given it a nice bit of a luster. Get another coat onto it. I don't think there isn't any hard and fast rule of how you need to finish jobs on the lathe. It all depends on the job. I've done jobs where I've only done a waxed finish. I've had some jobs where I've just done a burnished finish, and that's because it's going to be something that's being used a lot, so it's something that's a high gloss or a shine or a slippery finish, to be honest, is not something you'd want on it. With this, you want to have something that looks nice, so I'm going for this, a slight shine because of the oil and because it will harden up, and finish it off with a wax on top of that. and get rid of that excess. Just those bits that you don't want thrown at yourself, or in this case, the camera equipment, being that it's directly above the lathe. Happen with that doorway. Making sure I get all those bits out of the grooves. You might actually be able to see that. You can see where it's darker in the groove as soon as I get the cloth into it. It's lightening up because it's getting rid of that excess oil and actually buffing the surface. That's quite nice. Now I'm going to finish that off with a little bit of wax. Because the job's quite warm, it's probably going to go on really easy. And possibly fly all over the place. So I want to make sure I don't have any major lumps of wax on it. Now with some jobs you can apply the wax with a steel wool, a very, very fine steel wool, but because I've already got an oil on this, I don't want to scratch up the oil, I just want to polish in the finish. You should be able to see that really beginning to shine on there. The wax heats up and melts into the job. Same thing, you don't want wax being left over in the grooves. I'm quite happy with that finish. There's some nice grain in the timber. There's a few little inclusions in this one which add a little bit of an interest to the job. You can see where the different layers of the timber are. Again, some faults, but faults tend to lend themselves well, or faults in timber lend themselves well to turning. These stress fractures aren't going to be a major issue with it, but they do look quite nice. Now, for this, normally you would try and part it off. You can part this down somewhat. I'm not going to part it down too far. Once upon a time I would part down projects until they were just about ready to fall off, because that was how I was taught. But all I want to do is make this section just a little bit smaller so I don't have as much to cut. playing on the safe side. That's as far as I'm going to go down there. I'll now remove this and take it over to the bandsaw, cut this section with the bandsaw and just sand the bottom off flat on the disc sander so that I've got it ready to be presented, which will be a photo at the end of the video. But overall, I've just realised it looks a bit like a chess piece, but it should be a nice stand for a pillar candle. I think so. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. I hope you've learned something from it, as that was the intention. Keep an eye out for other videos. Thanks very much.